Hey guys, Sensei Jason here, Shoinryu.ca. Someone asked me the other day, Sensei Jason, what can I do to improve my sparring? I mean, look, there's a million things that you can do to improve your sparring, but I gave it a little bit of thought, and I figured there was 4 things that you could do pretty quickly to improve your sparring. So stick around, we're going to go through them. Okay, so the first thing that you can do to improve your sparring is try not to rest on your heels, okay? You know, I see a lot of people sparring. You see a lot of different people doing a lot of different stances and a lot of different foot positions. One thing that I've noticed over the years is some folks have a tendency when they're doing their sparring to have their center of mass resting more towards the back of their feet. Some people are sort of more back on the heels of their feet, okay? So it's a subtle thing, but it makes a big difference, okay? The reason why you don't want to be back on the heels or on the back of your feet when you're doing your sparring is because you're in sort of a very passive position, right? And what I mean by that is if I'm sparring with somebody and I'm back on the heels of my feet, now, when I want to go in and attack my opponent, I have to transfer my weight on my feet over now to the front of my feet so that I can then move in and do my attack, okay? That takes too long. And it also telegraphs to your opponent what it is you're going to do, okay? So what I would suggest instead is be either in a neutral position where your center of mass is balanced 50% on sort of the ball of your foot and 50% on the heel of your foot, or even, if you can get away with it, a little bit forward in your stance so that you're almost on the balls of your feet a little bit, okay? And the reason why you want to be in this sort of more forward position is because now, from there, I can move right from there. I don't have to transfer my weight and come through. I'm already forward, I'm balanced, I'm athletic, and right from there, I can move right from there. So that's tip number 1. Be either evenly distributed or have your center of gravity more towards the front of your feet, on the balls of your feet. That's tip number 1. Okay, number 2. We're still talking about stance, but I want to move from focusing on the foot to coming up and talking about the position of the legs overall. Okay, so there's really 2 common things that I see people doing, which I think can be improved upon, and we'll go through them. The first is some folks, when they're sparring, they tend to be too upright. They're almost in a natural or Shizendachi stance. Sometimes their legs are even locked out. Not so good, very stiff, not able to cover a lot of ground very quickly when you're standing up too straight, okay? That's the first thing that I see. The second thing that I see, people sometimes they tend to be too deep in their stance. This is sort of like a deep Jugutai stance that you might see when we do kata. Very common to do Jugutai like this when we're doing kata, but you have to remember kata is really helping you to exercise and strengthen the muscles. This is not necessarily something that I would recommend when you're actually sparring with somebody for a couple reasons. I mean, this is a bit of an awkward position to move around in, and also it's quite slow. And getting up out of this position takes a tremendous amount of energy from your thighs. So I would not recommend that. Instead, what I would recommend is being kind of halfway in between those 2 positions. So you are bending the legs slightly. There's some flex in your legs. There's tension in your hamstrings. You should feel tension in your legs and the back of the thighs. Okay, you want to be in this sort of spring-loaded position, so that you can move quickly. You can move quickly from this position. You can move back, forward, you can dodge parry. Okay, your legs should always be in this bent position so that you can go when you need to. So that's number 2. Number 3, tucking in your chin. Now, this may apply to folks that are doing sort of more semi-contact kind of sparring, but there's no reason why you can't practice this even when you're just working on things like flow sparring or sparring where there's no real contact. It's a habit that you can develop now, which will benefit you in the future. And that, what I mean by that is, you don't want to have your head up too high when you're sparring because you're projecting your jaw. Okay, your jaw is a huge target. I think anybody who's done any kind of sparring or fighting knows that this is a huge bullseye target. If you hit the jaw, in the right position, you're going to knock the person out. And obviously, we don't want that to happen. So one thing that you might want to practice now when you're sparring is keeping your jaw down and trying to keep it hidden away from your opponent. Okay, I'm not saying that you need to bury your head down like this, and you can't move in this position. It's really awkward. But you certainly don't want to have your head up straight like this when you're sparring, because at any moment, they could hit you in the jaw and knock you out. So you want to keep the chin more recessed and down, and keep it tucked away. And if you can even help present the shoulder as a bit of a guard to the jaw, that's even better, because now there's less of a chance that someone is going to come in with a hook on this side anyways and knock you out. Okay, conversely, you switch positions, the other arm comes out, you want to make sure that you're keeping that chin down and tucked away. Okay, so that's number 3. Okay, so number 4 is hand position. Now look, there's a million ways that you could position the hands when you're sparring, but I think fundamentally, particularly if you're new at sparring or if you're just learning to spar, there is a really basic hand position that you can use to get you started. So we're going to just go over that real quick, okay? So when you're in your sparring stance, you're in your fighting stance, what are you doing with your hands? Well, I would say that you should have one hand up, sort of in this kind of position, all right? Almost like you're doing a middle block, except your hands is sort of turned this way, okay? And you're kind of trying to protect your ribs a little bit, okay? So this is providing coverage out here in this area. Okay? This other hand here, sometimes we see folks are kind of resting it on their body, or even worse, it's kind of like down here somewhere. That's probably not what you want. You want to have this hand position sort of in around your center of mass here as a guard position for things that are kind of happening down here when you're sparring. And I think the overarching message here is when you are sparring, when you have a chance, you want to come back to this neutral sort of position so that you're ready to defend and you're ready to set up your next attack, okay? You don't want to drop the hands. You want to make sure that the hands are not sort of flopping at the side when you're sparring. I mean, obviously you're presenting all kinds of targets to your opponent. So you want to try to keep the hands in front, protect the ribs, protecting the center area here, okay? And you always want to come back to this position when you can. After you're done doing your position or your techniques, you always want to make sure that you're sort of coming back into this neutral position. That's number 4. Okay guys, so those are the 4 tips. Just a quick review. Do not rest on the heels of your feet. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is you want to have a good, sturdy, flexible stance. You don't want to be locked out. You don't want to be too deep. That's no good. Number 3 is the chin. When you can, try to keep that chin tucked in. Try to use the shoulder to provide a little bit of protection for that chin. And of course, number 4 is hand position. You don't want the hands flopping around. You always want to make sure that you're trying to get back into this neutral position so that you can set up your next attack, okay? Listen, thanks for checking out the video. Please go to the website, showandroo.ca. We got a ton of videos on there, a ton of content. We got a great blog article. You can read some of the material we've got on there. And if you happen to be in the Oshawa area, please come by the dojo, sit around, check out a class, and participate. Everybody is welcome here. We're all friends. So once again, Sensei Jason, showandroo.ca. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you next time.